due to the overwhelming success of Digimon Story Time Stranger, it has been confirmed that a large-scale DLC is in production for 2027. Now, details are scant as of time of recording. However, the fact that they specified large-scale DLC and an expansion-style DLC to me indicates that we're looking at something very different than the 5 Mega Digimon per pack of 3 with a short story chapter as each. I think in the modern gaming landscape, it's less likely that you're going to get a sequel like Hacker's Memory that has to go out physically and things like that when you could just release a DLC. Again, not to make needless Pokemon comparisons, but this actually makes sense. We've seen in recent years Pokemon has shifted from the third version style. Instead of making a Platinum or a Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, they instead release at least 2 DLC for mainline games, usually. So I think Digimon moving with the industry to me indicates that this DLC could potentially be as big as Hacker's Memory, or maybe kind of a halfway point between a DLC and a full new game. Obviously, Hacker's Memory was a full game in its own right, but Digimon also ran a poll asking which Digimon people wanted to raise or expect to see in future home console Digimon games. And they did reveal the results of that poll at the same section that they announced the Time Stranger DLC. And producer Ryosuke Hara even said that while he couldn't promise all of them would be, they are going to try to get some of the top 20 from the poll in the DLC. So on today's video, I want to go over which Digimon those are most likely to be in my opinion, and also out of all of them, what would their evolution lines be in this game, because I know a lot of people are curious about that and have asked me in my comments. What is up, digital companions? My name is Karn EX and welcome back to another video, and I'm so happy that we get another year of hype for Digimon Story Time Stranger into 2027. So yes, the results of the poll. Well, first of all, the Digimon that were eligible for the poll were a little bit of a strange mixed bag. At the top here, I would say we have most recent anime. We've got Gekomon, Pristimon, Hirotmon and Murasamemon from Digimon Beat Break, and then Gamamon, Angoramon, Jellymon, and Espimon from Digimon Ghost Game. And then Terriermon Assistant, which while it has been in the rest of the franchise, did become a kind of partner Digimon in Ghost Game, and now of course is kind of the mascot of Digimon YouTube and socials. Then we've got kind of like movie and outliers. We've got Ukomon, Morphomon, and Meikumon, all from Digimon Adventure movies. Gumdramon, one of the more slept on partners of the anime. It's a mainline partner, and yet doesn't seem to get the same treatment as even Shoutmon from its adjacent season. And yes, I do now remember that it was in 3D games like World Next Order. Skull Knightmon, a little bit more Cross Wars reference, I guess. And then we got some Frontier Spirits in Chakmon, Kazemon, Blitzmon, and Loemon. Then I would say I like App or VPET partners, Herismon from Eirias, just Vorvomon, but no Jazzamon for some reason from Digimon Lynx, Bluecomon from Digimon Encounters, Monmon from a bunch of stuff, but of course famously in the Digimon World 3 trio, Lugamon from Digimon Seekers, Pulsemon, which was also in Seekers, but also from the original Digimon Vital Bracelet release, Commandramon, which has been in a few VPETs, but was also in Seekers, and Ludomon, which is very much a counterpart to Zubamon, the 20th anniversary Digimon, and of course is now in Beat Break. And then at the bottom we've got a bunch of Digimon that while they maybe didn't debut in Digimon Liberator are now heavily associated with Liberator. Terramon, Shumon, Elizamon, Ghostmon, Sangomon, Sunarizamon, Hanimon, Bemon, and Machinamon. The results of the poll though were in some ways a little surprising. Barely squeaking in despite the requests for Digimon Frontier rep in Time Stranger was Loemon. And in fact, Chakmon and Blitzmon didn't even crack the top 20. I worry that we're not going to see a ton of Digimon Frontier Spirits in a Digimon game anytime soon. Then we have in the top 20 a good skew of Liberator Digimon, Terramon, Shumon, and Elizamon, and I will get to Elizamon shortly, and of course Bemon there. Then Skull Knightmon, Chiropmon, very glad that Chiropmon seems to be popular in Beat Break, Blucomon, Commandramon, Vorvomon. A good selection in the top 20. Top 10 though is where things get really interesting, and where I think most likely are going to be Digimon that are going to show up in this DLC, potentially. Gekomon and Ludomon are a no-brainer, Meikumon, Terriermon Assistant, Herismon, of course, and in the top 5, Pulsemon, Gumdramon, Kazemon, Lugamon, and Gamamon. So that's an interesting top 20 all in all. Now I have no real empirical data about this. My assumption is that this DLC is going to feature more Digimon than the waves, and they're not going to be just Mega Digimon. I think it's very unlikely they would do the same thing of 5 Mega Digimon per pack, given that the feedback has proven that that's not super popular with the fanbase, and that this large-scale expansion DLC would give them opportunity to add more Digimon that you can raise from Rookie through to Mega. In my opinion, I think this top 5 are absolutely going to be added to Time Stranger. First of all, Gamamon has been highly requested and would be a very easy thing to promote a DLC with. Hell, Gamamon could even lead the DLC somewhat. Its evolutions are all constellation themed, and there is an absolutely huge lineup with constellations and Greek myth. In fact, there's even a part of Time Stranger where Inori tells Aegiomon about constellations. So we could absolutely, I think, see Gamamon, Kaus Gamamon, Vasian Gamamon, Beetle Gamamon, Gulus Gamamon, Kano Vicemon, and Siriusmon. Though Hara & Co. even talked about Proximamon, which didn't debut in Ghost Game, it was kind of created for the TCG and the card game. I still feel like that was a weird choice to make this fusing, but I could absolutely see the Dark Evolution branch for Gamamon, Gulus Gamamon, Regulusmon, and Arcturusmon, and then the DNA Digivolution into Proximamon being in this game. That's an easy addition, a nice bump up of like 10 Digimon just with the Gamamon evolution line. I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed to not see Jellymon or Angoramon here. However, I think if they're adding Gamamon, there's a chance they could include their evolution lines too. Same with Espimon, and then you get some Liberator representation too. However, I do fear that that would then be a very big chunk of this DLC dedicated just to Ghost Game, when even like Frontier and technically Savers don't have a full representation here, even Cross Wars 2. Then is Lugamon. I'm actually going to bundle him with Pulsemon. They talked about a Digimon Con, Fenrir, Lugamon, Takumi, Kazuchi. If you're not familiar, that is a DNA Digivolution, a fusing of the Pulsemon Mega, Kazuchimon, and the Lugamon Mega, Fenrir Lugamon. So for Lugamon, it's pretty simple. I think if they're going to add him to the game, seems like he's very popular. Lugamon to Lugarmon to Hell Lugarmon and So Lugamon, the two ultimates, and then finally Fenrir Lugamon as the Mega and the DNA Digivolution to Takumi Kazuchi. Pulsemon is more problematic. As the mascot of the Digimon VB, it had a very branching evolution line with a bunch of different Digimon based on different exercises, and Hara even talked about Pistmon, which, yes, is the name of a Digimon. Personally, I would love it if they could add all of the Pulsemon evolutions from the VB. However, to me, it feels more likely that we're just going to see the kind of de facto, most kind of anime-style evolution line for Pulsemon if they were to add it to this DLC or a future game. Pulsemon to Bulkmon to Boutmon to Kazuchimon. And I think if they're adding Lugamon, they are going to add Pulsemon. Even though they didn't match up on their ranking, Pulsemon was a little bit behind at number 5, they're still both in the top 5, and if you're going to have Fenrir Lugamon, Takumi Kazuchi, you may as well at least do the normal full Pulsemon evolution line. I mean, bare minimum, they're going to add Kazuchimon, right? Maybe you could make it Digivolve off a different Digimon, but at that point, add the other 3 Digimon. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see other Pulsemon evolutions like Achillesmon, which would make so much sense for the Greek and Roman myth-themed Digimon Story Time Stranger, but it's maybe less likely. But if we can get Shroudmon in Time Stranger, I'll be happy forever. Kazemon, the Wind Spirit, even though I was a little bit disappointed not to see the other Frontier Spirits get into the top 20, I actually think if it was just Kazemon that got added to the DLC, it would make some sense. As a bit of a strange outlier in the base game was the inclusion of Ranamon and Calamaramon, one of very few Spirit Digimon in the game besides the Agunimon and Lobomon lines. So adding Kazemon, kind of the feminine counterpart to the feminine Water Spirit, to me would make sense. Kazemon, Shutumon, and Jet Selfimon, and maybe, potentially, Ancient Irismon. We already have Ancient Wisemon in the base game. Though I would also really love to see the unofficial kind of rookie of the Fairymon family, Tinkermon, added to the game too. Actually, Tinkermon and Petermon would be great to be here. And Digimon now has this kind of like working relationship with the VTuber Hakui Kayori, who voiced Tinkermon in Beat Break. So it would kind of be a cool promotion if they wanted to bring Tinkermon into Time Stranger. They could say, oh, well, the VTuber Kayori is voicing Tinkermon again in the game. And I don't know if they wanted to add some Fan Beamon evolutions, the rest of the royal base. I'll voice Forge Beamon, Bandai. I'll do it for free. Gumdramon, this is a no-brainer inclusion to me. Put Gumdramon in, put Arrestadramon in, maybe the superior mode with the Brave Snatcher and things like that, because it is a frontline anime partner that is often forgotten. I think only more forgotten than Gumdramon as a main anime partner is Gatchmon, and I really don't see Appmon being added to this unless the DLC is focused on Appmon, but it's possible. Herismon is also a super easy inclusion. It was very popular from Digimon Rearise and is going to show up in Digimon Elysian. So the evolution line here, I think, is very simple. Just its Rearise evolution line, Herismon, Philmon, Staphylmon, and then Rasenmon and Rasenmon Fury mode. I definitely can see this being included. Terriermon Assistant, likewise, I can very much see being included. It's already got a model in the base game, so they really would have to do a ton of work here. My only real issue is that would it get evolutions or not? Obviously, it would be able to Digivolve, but I can't see them making a brand new line of like Gargomon Professor or whatever for this. But really, there was no reason not to include this in the base game. You can literally use all of the same animations that regular Terriermon uses and just put the lab coat over the top of it. In fact, not having cosmetics like we had in Cyber Sleuth is one of the things that I missed from Time Stranger. So if we can't even get like an official Terriermon assistant, at least give us costumes in the DLC for our Digimon that could turn a Terriermon into a Terriermon assistant. Meicumon's in a weird spot. It has had models in things like World Next Order, so I think its evolution line of Meikumon to Meicrackmon and its vicious mode, and then Ragglemon and Racielmon makes a ton of sense. It's very similar naming conventions and evolution style to Herismon. I wonder if they might blend their lines. Meikumon, of course, also has Ordenaemon, which is comprised of Ragglemon and Ophanimon Fall Down mode, but Ophanimon Fall Down mode was not in Time Stranger, even though honestly there's a point in that game where it would have made a ton of sense to have seen the corrupted versions of the three Archangels, Ophanimon Fall Down mode, Black Seraphimon, and Cherubimon Vice, which is in the game. I don't know whether a DLC would add 2 more of the fallen Archangels, but I would really like to see Ordenaemon. Maybe they could just make it a DNA Digivolution of Ragglemon and regular Ophanimon, but Fall Down mode would be a great addition to the game too. And then we've got Ludomon. If this isn't in the Time Stranger DLC, I am going to kick off heavy style. It's now a prominent partner in Beat Break, and Zubamon is already in the base game and missing its DNA Digivolution Mega Level 7 Ragnar Lordmon. Adding Ludomon, Tia Ludomon, Raiji Ludomon, and Braiwa Ludramon would make a ton of sense for the game. They would fit into a lot of other evolution lines very easily. Like Braiwa Ludramon is a big shield fire dragon. You can have that Digivolve with a bunch of reptile Digimon. And then finally, after much request, you could add Ragnar Lordmon too. And finally is, of course, Geckomon from Digimon Beat Break, and it's already confirmed to be a pre-registration bonus for Digimon Up, the new mobile game, and there is Digimon Beat Break promo and t-shirts with Geckomon clinging to our backs already in Time Stranger. The issue with Geckomon right now is we only know its champion evolution, Armalizamon. Future Karn here, this video was all done. Thank you so much, Beat Break. I'm not going to say exactly what happened in this week's Beat Break episode, but just to stop people commenting, I want to acknowledge that maybe we've seen more than just the champion. I don't know, maybe we haven't. But internally at Bandai and Toei, they already know what this Geckomon is going to Digivolve to, because obviously they've designed it ahead of time. And this DLC won't be launching until 2027, by which point Beat Break might be over or entering its very last arc, unless they go for like a season 2 or something due to its success. So by that point, we could absolutely have the Geckomon evolution line. So if that was our DLC roster, what would that bring us up to? Well, approximately 10 evolutions including Gammamon, 10 for Lugamon and Pulsemon, 2 to 4 for Kazemon, at least 2 for Gumdramon, though I would love to see some Digicross added to this game, even if it was just Shoutmon Cross 4, which isn't technically related to Gumdramon, but you get my point. That's around 45, 46 Digimon for a DLC, just counting this top 10 from the poll. That would be a substantially large DLC update, wouldn't it? Now, of course, there is no promises they're going to add all 10 of these. For example, there might be the notion that the next game set in Shambhala, potentially, with Susanoo-Omon as a focus, that could be the game to add the spirit, so you might be able to knock Kazemon and its evolution-related family out of that. It's also possible Digimon from the top 20 could make it in too. For example, while Liberator has ended, and we're going into Elysian, which is a different department, they might want Digimon like Shumon and Terromon, and even Bemon and Elizamon to promote the TCG side of things, because they're popular. And let's not forget that Elizamon's evolution line leads up to Lamiamon and Medusamon. The Lamia and the Medusa, both of Greek myth, a natural fit for the Iliad server of Digimon Story Time Stranger. Commandramon also would have a big boon being added. We already have half of its original evolution line in Time Stranger as it is, with Tankdramon and Darkdramon. All you'd have to add is Commandramon and Sealsdramon and you'd be good to go. Though of course I'd also love to see in 3D for the first time, outside of like promotional videos, High Commandramon, Cargodramon, and Brigadramon. It is a total mixed bag of what to expect here, and I think it's even possible if they do this DLC on a larger scale, you know, 50 to 100 new Digimon added to the game, that we could see Digimon outside of this top 20, just because they're going to want to add Digimon that might be relevant to the plot or themes of the DLC. Obviously that's not the only factor, like Tyrannomon has no real story or lore basis in Iliad, but it's still something to consider. I'd also like to see them do something different, like maybe add a brand new Digimon like they did with things like Great Grizzlymon and Sharkmon, maybe a new fusion for the Olympos 12 or something like that. A new Aegiacusmon form would be really cool. There's a lot of potential here, but I think that top 10 is where we should mostly be looking at. Admittedly, there is absolutely room for only half of them to get added, and instead we'll see a lot of these added to the future game, but personally, Gammamon makes a ton of sense, obviously as the most popular, and if they program it into this DLC, they're probably going to be way easier to transfer it over to the next story game they make. Plus its constellation theming I think is really great fit, and while not in the top 10, I do think Elizamon's connection to Greek myth with Lamiamon and Medusamon is something that I would wish they would not overlook. There's also Demetramon, its champion, and Styrakomon, its level level 7, it's kind of parallel mega. While they didn't make the poll, it's kind of crazy to me that the Digimon Sovereigns and the Digimon Deva have not showed up in Digimon Story Time Stranger. The Sovereigns were in Survive, they've been in some other games, and the Deva too are very popular. Because let's not forget, Digimon like the Sovereign, the Devas, and even evolutions of Digimon on the list. Like for example, Pristimon was on the list, but not Wolvermon. Those might be more popular with people and they just didn't give them the opportunity to vote for them this time. So we do have to consider that too. I also think it would be a good opportunity, as they already have Armor Digivolution items in the base game, to allow some other Armor Digimon to show up in the game, like Bormon for example. You've got all these Armor Digi-Eggs, and in fact I believe there was even code in the game that indicated that a Digi-Egg of Kindness also was going to be included at some point. Let's add Buchimon for Wormmon, it already has limited evolutions anyway. There is also a data mined list of a bunch of Digimon that was seemingly cut maybe from the game, and I've seen some people say, oh, this means that these Digimon are definitely getting added in the DLC, right? And not really. This list doesn't necessarily indicate Digimon that were planned fully for Time Stranger, but instead might be data that was carried over from other games, mobile games, things like that. So while yes, things like the Armor Digimon from this list, the Ancient Greymon and Ancient Garurumon might end up in the DLC, it is not a foregone conclusion despite what some people might think. However, I will say the Digimon that were in Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's memory and didn't make it into Time Stranger absolutely should be re-added for this DLC. Arcadiamon, certainly, its evolution line was in Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's memory. There's no reason to exclude it because we have other V-Tamer Digimon in Time Stranger, and Arcadia, while a real region, also is rooted in Greek mythology. And Arcadia was the domain of Pan, who was a god and a satyr, just like Aegiomon. Why was Arcadiamon not in this game? Also, Hara, Digimon, if you're watching this, I know you already made the decision for the TCG. We truly do not care about Systemon Noir being a nun with guns. You can put all the Systemon in going forward, Noir, Ciel, and Blanc, as well as their awakened forms. Cheers. But that's it for now. My musings on some Digimon we might see in the next Digimon Story Time Stranger DLC. Of course, personally, I am hoping to see Forge Beamon, Vespermon, and Queen Beamon added to Time Stranger too, but maybe I'm just being selfish. There are also some Digimon that I'm going to talk about in a future video, Digimon that deserve to be in this game, very different, that have been overlooked, such as the Grimmon line and things like that, but that's a video for the future. Thank you to everyone who has been super thanking recently. I do really appreciate that. If you want to support the channel on a one-off, no obligation basis, you can absolutely do that, and it really helps support the channel. And thank you to my Sovereigns, ZDK14, Chaotic Prophet, Lupus Lichlord, and Jeremy Babineau over on patreon.com/Karn EX, and my YouTube channel members here on YouTube. You guys are amazing. Great to see so many of you. Hope you enjoyed this on early access, and I'll see you next time when we go digital. Bye bye.